Here are 3 reasons why I'm still buying Sui. Reason number 1 is because hypothetically, I believe that it could very well go to the price of $30 during this bull run. Now, of course, that's definitely not financial advice, also not a guarantee. But here's the thing. If you take a look at it, $30, it's around a 15x from here. So for instance, if I were to put $1,000, let's say, into Sui, and for instance, if it again were to go to the price of $30, at that point, I would have managed to turn my $1,000 potentially into 15 grand. Now again, that's not financial advice, and that's just, a random scenario I put. But here's the thing. This, if anything, I think showcases how when it comes to Sui, the run is far from over. Now, some people out there, they may think that, okay, like 15x, that's so caca, but I disagree. I think anything over a 10x really is pretty impressive. I mean, just think about this, right? If, let's say, someone was given like 1 car and then suddenly it became like 10 cars or like 15 cars or something like that, would anyone say, yeah, it's so bad? No, I disagree, right? I think that's pretty awesome in my opinion. So when it comes to Sui doing around a 15x, I don't think it's caca by any means. And now granted, with that being said, is Sui going to become like the biggest gainer in terms of percentage during a fully fledged bull run? Personally, I think there are other projects out there that could potentially, outgrow Sui in terms of, the percentage. But in my opinion, it doesn't really matter because when it comes to Sui, it's much more stable. I think when it comes to Sui, it's much more reliable. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, sure, there are like some, $5 million market cap, like, meme coins or like $100,000 like market cap projects that could potentially, become like the next 500x or 1000x. We never really know. But the risk is really high. A lot of my friends who kind of like try to follow that type of stuff, oftentimes they get it wrong and completely wrong in many cases. So in my opinion, instead of choosing something like that that's potentially very risky, I'd much rather just, stick with one of these more established players. And not to mention, when it comes to Sui, not only, again, is it more established than a lot of other projects out there, but at the same time, it just kind of feels like an established project that still has a decent room for growth. Because, for instance, right, I don't think that BNB can do like a 15x during this bull run. I don't think, like, for instance, Ethereum from right now could do a 15x. I don't think Solana could do that from right now, right? So when I take that into consideration, out of the more established players, who's the one that's still relatively up and coming? It's something like Sui. So the way I view it is that Sui is kind of like a best of both worlds type of scenario. It's not so small that the risk is very high, but at the same time, it's also not so big to the point that the room for growth is caca. That's not the case. It kind of has that, middle ground type of approach, if you know what I mean. So I'm kind of using this as my base, as my foundation in my portfolio, if that makes sense. I'm using this as more of a safe play, but at the same time, it's not really bad anyways, because a 15x I still don't think is caca. And now at the price of $30, it's not like the market cap would be outlandish or something like that. I mean, at that point, market cap would be around $83 billion. I mean, come on, why is this so bad? We've seen Dogecoin reach over $80 billion in market cap. This is like peanuts, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things, especially when I consider just how special Sui is as a layer 1 blockchain. And now, this actually brings me to my second reason as to why I'm buying Sui, and that is because, again, I think that Sui is arguably one of the best layer 1 blockchains out there. I mean, it has the traits that people often look for when it comes to a layer 1 blockchain. It's lightning fast, it's secure, and it's highly scalable. And I really like that. When people oftentimes like to say that, yeah, Sui, it's the little brother to Solana, it's caca compared to Ethereum. Well, I disagree. I mean, for instance, right, we take a look at how these statistics, and of course, we all know that numbers don't lie in some cases. We take a look at this, for instance, transactions per second is around 297,000, and the time to finality is around 400 milliseconds on average. And by the way, this has been noted to be faster than Solana, Avalanche, and Ethereum, allegedly. So when people like to say that Sui is the little brother to like Avalanche or like Solana or something like that, well, that's very disrespectful in my opinion. I mean, come on, right? With these statistics, it's not the little brother in my opinion. That's just the way I view it. Not to mention, total value locked is currently worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. There's over 15 million active accounts, and it's been able to facilitate over 4 billion transactions. So when people like to say that, yeah, Sui, it's caca, man. No, I mean, it's not. Now, granted, also we take a look at this, right? Currently, companies like Alibaba Cloud and Oracle Red Bull Racing, they're building on Sui. So when you take a look at that, could you imagine how massive they are? When it comes to Sui, this is a true testament to just how special it is. And the fact that the team can even pull stuff like this off, I think is very impressive because, as we all know, leadership is very important. And when it comes to Sui, they pretty much have that covered. This is how amazing they are. As the old saying goes, right? The fish rots from the head down. Everything starts with a leader. So when it comes to Sui, amazing fundamentals, amazing statistics, amazing leadership, and amazing partnerships in a sense, I think this is pretty much a game, set, match in my opinion. Not financial advice though, but we also take a look at how when it comes to Sui, right? Website looks amazing. It doesn't look bad at all. You take a look at how a lot of other projects out there, website is completely atrocious. Now that right there is like a red flag in my opinion. That's just complete no bueno, because if a project is serious, why would they have a bad website? You know what I mean? That's just very unprofessional. At least that's the way I view it. Not to mention, right, people really love like Ethereum, but then sky-high gas fees, arguably not even scalable. Sui doesn't have these caca problems. Not to mention, Ethereum, they often have to rely on like these layer 2s that combats all this type of stuff. But when it comes to Sui, I think as a standalone project, it's already very solid. It doesn't need like any of these random knickknacks or something like that, like a layer 2, for instance. I don't think it needs that. The way I view Sui is that, of course, it's nowhere near as massive as Ethereum in terms of the ecosystem and the fans, but I think fundamentally it's very fantastic. The way you take a look at Sui is that it's basically like an Aston Martin. You know what I mean? It's not very well known when it comes to a lot of people, an Aston Martin, right? But in my opinion, it's actually one of the best cars out there. At least that's the way I view it. I think it's much better than like a Nissan GTR, which I think looks completely caca, in my opinion, because people, for whatever reason, they really like the Nissan GTR, but I think that's kind of like an Ethereum. You know what I mean? It has a lot of fans, a lot of hype, sure, but I just don't get it, because think about this. If I'm paying over $100,000 for a vehicle, why would it be a Nissan? Here's the thing. If I use a Nissan GTR and then someone pulls up beside me with a Nissan as well, but then it's a Nissan Altima, they'll be like, yeah, I have a Nissan. So then the person who doesn't really know cars, they're going to be like, oh yeah, they're both Nissans. And then the ego at that point for the Nissan GTR owner, let's say hypothetically, that's me in this case, it's going to go down the drain. So that's why, I'm not a fan of that. But even besides that point, when I take a look at Sui, it's like the Aston Martin of projects. But when it comes to Ethereum, it's like the Nissan GTR of layer 1 blockchains. Sure, it's a Nissan GTR, I guess. A lot of people like it. I don't know why. But we all know that the Aston Martin looks way cooler. That's just my opinion, though. But that's why I'm buying Sui still, because I think it's a very amazing layer 1 blockchain, but it's often underrated. And the third and final reason why I'm still buying Sui is because, as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. Now, what do I mean by that? Usually, when the crypto space overall does pop off in a massive way, typically good projects and a lot of other altcoins as well, usually even some of the caca ones, they typically go along with the ride. So when it comes to that, I would only be fair to assume, right? If, let's say, Bitcoin goes to the price of $150,000 during this bull run, I think Sui at that point, reaching the price of $30, I don't see why not. There's the Bitcoin ETF. You take a look at the number of institutional investors, it's through the roof. And also on top of that, you take a look at how there's over 500 million crypto owners as of right now, according to Crypto.com research. So with all these amazing factors, I think Bitcoin is going to do hypothetically so well. And I think, of course, at that point, something like Sui could potentially go along with the ride. Now, only time will tell, but it's just a waiting game at this point. The way I take a look at this as of right now is that it's just basically like watching a boring movie, but it's like 4 hours long. You know what I mean? Sure, it may be boring, but hey, at least, it's a waiting game. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the crypto space overall in like 6 months from right now, like a year from right now, I think things could be so different. I get why a lot of people are impatient, because a lot of them, they've been waiting ever since 2021. So, they're just feeling a little bit like, oh, wow, when is things going to pump, all this type of stuff. But in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. That's why I'm staying patient. I'm continuing to accumulate Sui, holding and just waiting, because I believe in the future of cryptocurrencies. I think that the whole crypto space overall is far from over, and I think Sui has a bright future ahead. And again, reaching the price of $30 with all those fantastic factors during this bull run, I don't see why not. And feel free to become a channel member if you want to, and that way you can get a prioritized response from me in the comments, and also you can use these like cool stickers and badges when you do comment. So yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. Also, on top of that, make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.